This is Nixon. Oh, here he goes! My goodness!
They may not like the cold,
He's taking it the distance.
but they represent the green and gold.
Love to Watson.
Going deep, has a man. It's caught. Watson is in. Touchdown, Green Bay.
Welcome to the West Coast Cheeseheads podcast.
Welcome, Packer family, to another episode of the West Coast Cheeseheads podcast. As you know, I'm your host, Mateo, alongside with my co-host, Joe, and thank you for joining. So, it's been a while since the last time I was able to say this, but this right here is a victory episode. That's right. Green Bay Packers ended up facing the Los Angeles Rams at home and walked away with a victory of 20-3. Pretty exciting stuff, but is it really exciting? And so we're going to go ahead and we're going to dig into this. But first and foremost, I want to thank all of you listeners out there for continuing to support the podcast. And if you haven't yet, please like and subscribe on our YouTube channel at West Coast Cheeseheads Podcast. You can also find and follow us on Facebook at West Coast Cheeseheads Podcast, Instagram at WC Cheeseheads Podcast, or Twitter and TikTok at WC Cheeseheads. We are here to provide you with all information, anything and everything Packer related. We may not like the cold, but certainly still rep the green and gold. So, Joe, how you feeling right now, man?
Doing good, Mateo. Man, you got that intro down. You have it down to a T, man. That was good. I'm doing good. You know, Packers came out with a W today against the Rams, a beaten up Rams team that doesn't have their starting quarterback, doesn't have their starting running back, but it's a W. I don't know if it's beneficial for us going forward, but it's a W, so can't complain.
No, can't complain. I think I got my intro down so much because I'm actually excited. We had a win today. You know, it's something that a lot of Packer fans haven't felt in a while with our last 4-game losing streak, but nonetheless, we did have a win today. So I want to go ahead and I want to talk about this game, though, Joe, because the Packers did walk away with the win on this one, and I shouldn't even say walked away. I mean, because the defense really stepped up in this game, being that they only allowed 3 points. So, yeah, I think I really want to highlight the defense in this game because they really, really laid it on them. Granted, they didn't have Matthew Stafford out there, okay? They had their second string in. But nonetheless, man, they were just on point today. What do you think?
Yeah, our defense has been incredible this season. We have the third least amount of points allowed in the NFC so far. The guys can continue to step up and play like the caliber that we know they can play. The guys that I really want to highlight is the defensive line. Guys like Kenny Clark and Preston Smith and Rashawn Gary and these guys have stepped up. They are elites. They clog the holes. They're putting pressure on the quarterback. I was watching them today, and I couldn't be happier with our defensive line and most of our defense for that matter. So this is definitely the best part about the Packers this season is our defense, and especially our defensive line. If you're looking at any type of positives from the season, look no further than that defensive line.
Yeah, our defensive line has really stepped up. And one person I want to give a shout out to is Colby Wooden. I've heard his name so much throughout these last few weeks. And mind you, this guy was a late round draft pick in this year's draft. So shout out to Colby Wooden because he's really been putting the pressure on. And I really like what I see. And I can't wait to continue to see what he does moving forward. But, you know, another shout out to another rookie that we picked up this season, Carrington Valentine. He ended up having his first career NFL pick today. And so, wow, what a great moment too. I mean, it was deflected by Jair. Jair ended up causing the disruption, but there was Valentine there ready to pick it off. So really, really impressed with how the defense has performed. So there's so many people on this defense that I could give a shout out to. And I know with the recent departure of Rasul Douglas that we weren't really sure how they were going to continue to perform without him. But they really stepped up today.
Yeah, a lot of guys stepped up. This Rams receiving core is good. You look at they have Puka Nacua, they They have Cooper Kupp. They have Atwell. This is a solid receiving core that the Rams have, and our guys shut them down for the most part today. Really wasn't any big plays that we let up. Made a lot of good plays to block passes, to get into passing lanes. Very impressed with this defense. Very impressed with some of our young guys on the defensive side. Even guys like Carl Brooks, back second string nose tackle. He stood on his head today. Played extremely well. You look for a positive this season with the Packers, it's definitely that defense, and I couldn't be happier with the defense that we're putting out there on the field every week.
Right. And, I'm even looking at the Rams rushing yards. They had a total of 68 rushing yards with 26 carries. So they held them. They really did. And, I think the fact that they don't have Kyron Williams out there right now is really starting to hurt them. But, they do have big names. I mean, Darrell Henderson Jr., Royce Freeman, those are some big names. And for them to shut them down really speaks volumes.
Well, Darrell Henderson's been with them for a while now. It was supposed to be one of their lead backs this season. And when Kyron Williams came in and kind of took over that role, Darrell Henderson kind of fell to the wayside. But now that Kyron Williams is out, Darrell Henderson's got to have to be one of those main guys again. And there was a reason why Kyron Williams took his spot in the first place. Darrell Henderson is not a top tier running back these days anymore, and again, the Rams are beat up a little bit. No Matt Stafford, no Kyron Williams, but for the defense to stand on their head, plug every single hole out there, and to really stop this receiving core, very impressed with them today.
Yeah. Okay. Well, with our defense being the positive side of things, one thing that I need to pinpoint out on a negative standpoint is something that we've continuously brought up, and I think that this is really only rookie errors, but the amount of penalties that we had to start off this game. I mean, there were some key moment penalties that were taking place. 4th and 1, 4th and inches, and we got called for offsides twice in those moments where we could have continued the drive, but those offsides were really, really key moment and bad penalties to have right in that time. I will say that I think that one of them might have been a little iffy, but nonetheless, these guys need to just kind of know in that moment, maybe just take a step back. You don't want to get called on something like that.
So I heard the announcers talking about these offsides, and that the reason why the referees are starting to be a little bit more picky on them is because of this 4th and 1 style offense that the Eagles have been running, and that's become very popular throughout the NFL. So they're really being really picky as far as where the offensive linemen are lined up. Prior to this season, offensive offside calls are few and far between, and it seems like they've been picking up here this season. It's simple. If you just look at the line judge, ask him if your positioning is fine, then back up a couple steps. Especially on 4th and 1 in crucial situations, you got to make sure that you're lined up correctly so you can't get a really stupid penalty called on you like an offsides. That's really inexperience. That is, like you said, just being young and not understanding the position that you need to be in there on the line.
Yeah, well, I mean, granted, we did walk away with a win, even with a couple of these young player errors that were taking place. But, moving on, I do want to bring up Jordan Love's stats now, okay? Because Jordan Love ended up going for 20 for 26, 228 yards with 1 touchdown. He had 4 sacks, okay? But nonetheless, credit to the O-line, because the O-line was creating a lot of opportunity, which is always my key word. And that's the one thing that I look forward to is opportunities. And yeah, Jordan Love played decent today. 228 yards. It's nothing to shout about, but he did enough. And then the same goes for our rushing. Aaron Jones, 20 carries for 73 yards. Emmanuel Wilson, 4 for 43, and that was towards the end. He had a big-time run right in the end of the game. But altogether, our rushing yards, they finally stepped up. for 184 total yards. And this is something that we've been looking for. We've been looking to try to balance balls that are going in the air compared to staying on the ground. And I think that played a key part in this victory today.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about it quite often here this season that our rush game needs to improve in order for this offense to get better. And we see what we can do when they actually are performing. Aaron Jones had a good game back, finally scored a touchdown today, had a nice 73 yards, actually got involved today. So when that happens, you're able to open up the passing game a little bit. It just opens up the field completely because now the defense isn't able to just sit back into zone coverage and just block passing lanes. Oh, I was very happy to see the Packers turn to more of a run game today. It was kind of run heavy this game, compared to what has been recently. So I definitely like this offensive style way more than we've been throwing out the last few weeks. So Aaron Jones is such a pivotal piece of this offense.
Yeah, glad to see that running game taking place. And on the receiving side of things, key player Luke Musgrave stepped up today. I mean, he only had 3 receptions for 51 yards, but he finally got his first NFL career touchdown. And I think that this might actually be the start of something. And this is something that we've been looking forward to when it came to Musgrave. So I can't wait to see how he continues to grow as this season continues to progress. But another key player, and this is a guy that we've mentioned, slim here and slim there in some other episodes, but Dontavian Wicks, he had 4 receptions for 49 yards. He did have the 1 fumble today, and, again, I think that was just more or less a rookie error. He was trying to gain the extra yardage, stuck his hand out, and the ball ended up coming loose. Luckily, nothing really ended up turning out for it, but nonetheless, Dontavian Wicks, he really was stepping up today. Christian Watson had 1 reception. Romeo Doubs with 3 receptions. I mean, Jordan Love was really spreading the love in this game, and players were actually starting to catch the ball, which is something that we talked about in the last episode, okay? If Love's going to get these balls out to you, because we know that some of them can be underthrown or overthrown by Jordan Love, the accuracy isn't necessarily there, and maybe all of that's going to continue to come with some experience. But when he gets the ball to you, we're expecting you guys to catch it. And today, they really ended up showing up.
Yeah, our wide receivers made some good plays today, but what I really need to see on this offense is one of our wide receivers really step up to become that wide receiver 1. You look at some of these really good teams out there, like, for instance, the Eagles. Jalen Hurts has A.J. Brown, where he's throwing double-digit targets to him on every single game. You look at the Chargers, and Herbert has Keenan Allen that he's throwing double-digit targets to every single game. You look at the Minnesota Vikings, and they have Justin Jefferson. Bengals have Jamar Chase. We need one of our wide receivers to step up to become that potent wide receiver 1 who we can count on to be targeted double digits every single game and to come down with that many receptions. And none of these receivers are really doing that yet. It could be because they're young. All of our receivers are within their first 2 years of their career. Maybe here in the next couple of years, somebody will step up and become that number 1, or maybe we're going to have to go outside the organization to get a bona fide number 1 wide receiver. And until then, I don't think that this offense is really going to improve or progress very much until we get that wide receiver 1. So, but nonetheless, they did play well today. Musgrave had a great game today. He seems to always be there for Jordan Love when he's in trouble, which I like to see. He always has those kind of like comeback routes, or he's always in a vicinity for Jordan Love to make a play when he's rushed out of the pocket or he's getting pressured. And that's what a tight end needs to do. So good game by Luke Musgrave. Really impressive there. Would really like to see guys like Christian Watson step up and get open more for Jordan Love. Again, we can talk until we're blue in the face about Jordan Love underthrowing balls or not throwing the balls at the right time or throwing into double or triple coverage. But I think we're done and over talking about that. It's time for these receivers to step up a little bit as well.
Right. Okay. Well, speaking of Christian Watson, let's hope that he's actually okay, because I know he ended up taking a pretty nasty hit, and he was questionable to return in the game, and then they just listed him out after we ended up taking a pretty good stance in the game. But now leading into my next topic. Okay, Packers got the win here, 20-3. Now comes the next bit of our remaining schedule, okay? We're going into Pittsburgh, and we're going to be facing the Steelers. Following week, we've got the Chargers. Week after that, we've got the Lions, and then we've got the Chiefs. So we've got a really strong schedule ahead of us. What's your take on this win? Was this win beneficial, or do you think it's more detrimental?
I see it as a little bit of both. I definitely think it's detrimental for our future because I believe any win going forward in this season is going to pull us farther away from that top draft pick or that very high-end draft pick that we want. I definitely think it's beneficial, though, because it'll get these young guys some confidence. It might get Jordan Love a little bit of confidence. It might get Aaron Jones a little bit more confidence. That is, I believe, what we lack on this team is the confidence to perform the way that we're capable of doing. So I do see that there is some positives there. But just from a organizational standpoint, I think any win going forward in this season is detrimental to our future. We need to be looking at these games as losses every single week to put us closer to the top of the draft going forward.
Right. And in some ways, I agree with you because, you know, just the way that this team has performed over the past couple weeks, it just does seem like we need to just continue to look forward to the future. Not necessarily this season, because this obviously has just been a recovery season. You know, they're really just trying to figure stuff out. But, you know, looking at the remaining schedule that I just ended up going over and our current ranking in the NFC, we're currently ranked 11th right now, okay? Tied with the Buccaneers and one game shy behind the Falcons and the Commanders. Okay, so with that being said, it might still be early on for us to actually try to grab a wild card spot. But with our schedule, it almost seems like it's going to be really tough for us to be able to continue to move forward. I mean, we've got key teams that we're going to be playing against. I mean, Chiefs and the Lions and the Steelers. Chargers are playing great right now. And then, I mean, the back end of our schedule doesn't seem too bad with the Panthers and the Bears. But yeah, in some ways, I do actually agree with you. I think we do need to continue to move forward. But I'm not going to lie, it looks great with the Packer win today. And you know, looking at how Matt LaFleur ended up talking to these guys in the locker room after this game, they seem pretty hyped.
Yeah, and I'm glad that they have a little bit of confidence coming out of this game. We have a tough schedule. We have a very tough schedule. The Steelers are no joke. The Chiefs are no joke, as we know. Lions are, I believe, a Super Bowl contender this year. The Chargers are sitting at a 3-4 record, but we know how good that team can be, and they're dangerous. And then you look at the rest of our schedule after these 4 really tough games. We have the Bucs, where they're sitting kind of the same position that we are. Panthers are one of the worst teams in the league. That should be a W. That should be one of the few W's that we have the rest of the season. Vikings are playing great right now. Bears, they're not playing bad. They're playing decent ball, you know, as good of ball as we're playing. So I don't see very many wins left on this schedule, which means that every win that we do have doesn't make sense. Doesn't make sense for this organization. If we wanted to, again, make this rebuild go as quick as possible, we need to be tanking. We need to be losing every single game, because if we don't, the rebuild and getting back to a winning organization is just going to get prolonged further.
Right. Okay, well, here's a question that I have for you, though. Okay, because as good as the Steelers are and as good as the Chargers are, if we were to actually go into Pittsburgh and then come back home against the Chargers and win out on both of these games, how would you feel about that?
Again, I mean, if we win both those games, that puts us at a record of, what would we be? We would be 5-5. We'd have a 500 record. But then we're going into games with Detroit and Kansas City, which I don't think we have a chance to win. So that puts us at 5-7. We played a team today that has been beaten up. We played a team today that didn't have their starting quarterback. that didn't have their starting running back. It was raining. They hardly even threw the ball, so we were able to really focus on stopping the run. I don't think we need to take too much stock in this win today. I think we need to be glad that they got the W and they could build some confidence off of it. But the win itself wasn't that impressive. So, again, I don't see us winning many more games this season because these other teams that we have up in our schedule aren't as beat up as the Rams. They all have their starting quarterback. They all have their number one wide receiver. They have their guys ready to go. And if the Packers play like they've been playing all season against these teams, they're losses. There's no chance of a win against these teams. So I don't see it happening. I see us having a pretty crummy record at the end of the season. And I would hope that this team builds towards the future by tanking. And that's kind of all I got to say about that.
That's all I have to say about that.
Right. Well, you know, you're not alone. I know that there are other Packer fans that do feel the same way as you, but you don't know what's going to end up happening. I mean, like I said, they seem pretty hyped in this locker room, and one of their sayings, the Pack is back. You know, we can only hope that they actually capitalize and they try to build off of that energy. But if they don't, then I think that they do need to start taking this season into realization and start looking forward to the future. Anyways, with that being said, that concludes this episode. So thank you all again for joining. We truly appreciate it. And again, if you haven't yet, please like and subscribe on our YouTube channel at West Coast Cheeseheads Podcast. You can also find and follow us on Facebook at West Coast Cheeseheads Podcast, Instagram at WC Cheeseheads Podcast, or Twitter and TikTok at WC Cheeseheads. We truly appreciate it and thank each of you for joining us on the West Coast Cheeseheads Podcast. We may not like the cold, but certainly still rep the green and gold. Go Pack Go. Have a great week.